When people hear a title like at 76, Meryl Streep names the 6 actors she hated the most, it sounds explosive. It sounds like a tell-all, a Hollywood reckoning. But here's the reality. Meryl Streep has never built her legacy on public feuds. She's built it on discipline, preparation, and almost surgical emotional precision. Over a career spanning nearly half a century, she has worked with hundreds of actors, legends, newcomers, directors turned performers, theater purists, action stars, method devotees. And when you work that long at that level, friction is inevitable. Not screaming matches, not tabloid brawls, but creative tension. So instead of cheap sensationalism, this is a deeper look at 6 actors she reportedly struggled with, moments where personalities, methods, or egos collided behind the scenes. Let's begin. Dustin Hoffman.
He slapped me as hard as he could.
Who? Dustin?
Dustin.
The most frequently cited tension in Streep's career involves Dustin Hoffman during the filming of Kramer vs. Kramer. At the time, Streep was still relatively new to film. Hoffman was already an established star with a reputation for immersive method acting. The story required emotional devastation, divorce, custody battles, a mother leaving her child. The performances needed to feel raw. Hoffman was known for pushing co-stars to elicit genuine reactions. Reports over the years have described moments where he crossed lines, improvising actions without warning to provoke authentic emotion. One story that resurfaced decades later involved Hoffman slapping Streep during a scene without prior agreement. Streep has spoken about that experience in retrospective interviews. She described it as inappropriate and reflective of a time when power dynamics favored established male actors. She emphasized that surprise tactics weren't necessary to produce honest emotion. The tension wasn't about artistic disagreement alone. It was about boundaries, about respect, about the difference between intensity and intuition. Yet the film became a masterpiece. Both actors were nominated for Oscars, and Streep won her first Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress. Sometimes greatness emerges from discomfort, but that doesn't mean the discomfort is forgotten. Robert De Niro paralleled geniuses, distant energies. Streep's work alongside Robert De Niro in The Deer Hunter placed her within an ensemble dominated by intense male performances. De Niro is famously private, inward, almost silent between takes. He stays internal, withdrawn, focused. His method thrives on solitude. Streep, while equally committed, approaches character through language, rhythm, accent, and emotional connection. She analyzes dialogue deeply. She builds vocal layers meticulously. During filming, there were reports that the two respected each other's talent, but didn't form a natural collaborative bond. Their styles didn't clash explosively. They simply operated on different wavelengths. De Niro's emotional minimalism and Streep's linguistic precision created performances that coexisted rather than intertwined. That distance translated on screen into a subtle, believable restraint. But behind the scenes, it meant there wasn't much warmth or shared creative process. Sometimes two titans don't collide. They orbit, and orbiting can feel cold. Clint Eastwood, speed versus perfection. When Streep worked with Clint Eastwood on the bridges of Madison County, audiences saw romantic chemistry. What they didn't see was a fundamental contrast in working philosophy. Eastwood directs with remarkable efficiency. Few takes. Minimal rehearsal. He trusts instinct. He believes overworking a scene drains authenticity. Streep, on the other hand, is famously meticulous. She fine-tunes accents for months. She experiments with subtle facial shifts. She wants space to explore emotional micro-movements. In interviews, Streep admitted she was initially unsettled by Eastwood's pace. She worried there wouldn't be time to refine. Eastwood reportedly reassured her, encouraging spontaneity. The result was a beautifully restrained film, one built on quiet glances and internal longing. But the tension wasn't about dislike. It was about two masters navigating control differently. For Streep, relinquishing repetition was uncomfortable. For Eastwood, repetition was unnecessary. The friction created discipline, and discipline created magic. Goldie Hawn, competitive comedy. In Death Becomes Her, Streep faced off against Goldie Hawn in a satire built entirely on rivalry, vanity, and obsession with youth. Two glamorous A-list actresses. One darkly comic script. Endless opportunities for scene stealing. Reports from the era suggested that tension occasionally simmered beneath the surface, not because of hatred, but because both performers were fiercely committed to comedic timing and screen dominance. Comedy is territorial. The smallest pause, the slightest eyebrow raise, can shift audience focus. In a film built around dueling performances, balance is delicate. Industry whispers at the time hinted at disagreements over billing order and promotional emphasis. Whether exaggerated or not, the environment of competitive satire can amplify sensitivity. Yet on screen, their rivalry sparkled. The tension fed the characters. Sometimes conflict isn't destructive. Sometimes it fuels performance. And Hathaway, staying in character. During The Devil Wears Prada, Streep embodied the icy, intimidating Miranda Priestley opposite Anne Hathaway. What many fans didn't know was that Streep chose to remain emotionally distant from Hathaway during filming. She limited casual interaction. She maintained Miranda's detachment between takes. Hathaway later described feeling isolated on set, unsure if Streep disliked her personally. Years later, Streep revealed that staying in character was emotionally draining and not something she enjoyed. There was no feud, no argument, but method acting can create temporary barriers. For Hathaway, the distance felt real. For Streep, it was craft. When the film wrapped, Streep reportedly told Hathaway that she adored her and that the coldness had been part of maintaining authenticity. Sometimes professionalism looks like hostility. Sometimes it's simply immersion. Sylvester Stallone, philosophical divide. Though they never shared a major on-screen project, discussions around potential collaborations between Streep and Sylvester Stallone surfaced during the 1980s. Streep's career was rooted in theater, dialect mastery, and emotionally complex narratives. Stallone built his legacy on physicality, action-driven storytelling, and larger-than-life characters like Rocky Balboa. Industry insiders have suggested there was skepticism on both sides about compatibility. Not animosity, but philosophical difference. Streep represents character transformation through subtle nuance. Stallone represents mythic resilience through archetype. In Hollywood, sometimes friction isn't personal. It's artistic identity. Two icons from different schools of storytelling don't always blend. And sometimes that difference prevents collaboration entirely. The bigger picture. Here's the truth that rarely fits in a headline. Meryl Streep doesn't have a public history of hatred. She has a history of standards. In interviews, she has consistently emphasized respect, preparation, and emotional safety on set. When those elements feel compromised, tension arises. But she has never built her career on public takedowns. She doesn't release lists. She doesn't air grievances dramatically. At 76, she remains a symbol of professionalism. If there were actors she struggled with, those struggles were about craft, about boundaries, about ego, about pace. Not vendettas, because in Hollywood, longevity belongs to those who master not only performance, but restraint. And Meryl Streep has mastered both.